second Old World release of 2025 already up for pre-order, it seems like Beasts of Chaos will be returning to the Old World before we know it. Given the pattern of what's now been seen in all of the various Arcane Journals over the course of the last year, I am confident that I can predict precisely what is going to return to the Beasts of Chaos range once they come back up for pre-order themselves. So, without further ado, let's get down to it. What do we know is coming back for the Beasts of Chaos then? Well, first of all, we know everything that's in the Ravening Hordes book, so we already know what the Beasts Army list looks like at the moment. And it's almost everything that was on the kind of Beasts of Chaos list in the Age of Sigmar, and in fact it's what was in the Beasts of Chaos army list before Age of Sigmar was even a thing. Let's revisit the obvious ones first. The Gore box. Okay, so this is the classic Beastman box. It was remastered for the release of 8th edition once Ungors got their own separate box to remove kind of the slightly more Ungorish elements and leave us just with the traditional kind of brutish horned Beastmen we all know and love. Obviously, therefore, also the Ungor boxes, the Ungor skirmishers that come with either spears or bows. They'll be making a return, as I expect will the Bestigor kit. It also seems extremely likely that the plastic Minotaur kit will be making a return. I'm slightly disappointed about that because I honestly just don't like the way they look. I get that they were going for something that looked more like an actual, you know, piece of livestock, but I love the classic old kind of slightly cartoonish Minotaurs that we used to have in Warhammer. In any event, I fully expect that the plastic Minotaur kit will make a return, as will, I would suppose, the Gorgon and the Cygor kit. That then accounts for all of the kind of the plastic kits, save for the Chaos Warhounds, which have already gotten a sort of re-release as part of the Warriors of Chaos list. What, though, will we see in terms of the other returning units? Well, I fully expect that we'll see the Centaur kit returning in its metal form, pretty much unchanged since its release in 6th edition. I fully expect that it will come back in much the same way as the kind of metal Bretonnian Knights from 6th edition came back as well. I fully expect that we will also see a return of the classic Tuskagore Chariot. This has been doing noble duty since 5th edition, and whilst I would love to see an update to the boars from this, given that they didn't update the plastic boars for the Orc Boar Chariot, I'm fully expecting that this is just going to come back as is, with the kind of metal add-on heads for the plastic boar sprue, and then some, you know, metal Beastman and metal Chariot bits. It's fine, it's a lovely kit. It would be nice to see a kind of cool multi-part plastic kit for that, but I'm not expecting Games Workshop to go to the trouble of making one of those. What about the other unit options? Well, there was a whole range of kind of metal command models that were then recast in Finecast, and I think it's fairly easy to suggest that they will return in turn back in metal. So that's the Wargore kit, the Beastman Shaman kit, and I think we can also probably expect to see the plastic Wargore and plastic Beastman Shaman kits that were available at the end of kind of Beastmen's time in Age of Sigmar. There are some other kits, though, that I think might get a re-release in Forge World resin. Most notably, things like the Doom Bull. That's, again, it's in the style of the kind of classic, the plastic Minotaurs, so it is that kind of elongated, slightly more traditionally bovine or almost ovine head. It was released in Finecast. It was a pain in the bum to build in Finecast, but I can fully imagine it might get reproduced, perhaps with a little bit of remastering in Forge World resin. I say this partly because it's scaled very much to fit on a 50mm base, and that is what the army list entry says a Doom Bull should be mounted on. I also fully expect that some of the classic monsters that were released in Finecast will return in Forge World resin, so notably the Jabberslithe and the Cockatrice, which are both currently part and parcel of the Beastman list. They were released as Finecast models. In fact, the Jabberslithe somewhat frighteningly was released as a metal model and was a nightmare to put together again. The wings needed a lot of pinning, I remember, from when we built ours for the store when I was working for Games Workshop. But yeah, I think both of those we can fully expect to perhaps see in Forge World resin. I am also expecting perhaps a return of another classic plastic monster kit, and here now we start to get onto some of the stuff that we might see in the Arcane Journal. That is the Chimera. The Chimera was, of course, released in Fantasy 8th edition as part of the kind of giant wave of monsters and magic that they were trying to push as part of the kind of move towards a 40k style apocalypse game system. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of 8th. I don't feel that that necessarily worked, and it kind of bent the way in which the 8th edition rules were shaped. But I can fully expect, therefore, that that plastic Chimera kit may well make a return for the Beastmen. It might be a unit entry that's available in the Arcane Journal. Equally, there's a Manticore kit that was currently been re-released as part of the Warriors of Chaos kit. That's available with the Chaos Lord or Chaos Sorcerer mounted on the top, but it was designed so that you could take a Manticore without any form of rider on it. And I can fully expect that that might be something that we see in the Beastman army list. In the 8th edition army book, they had the option to take wild Manticores, and I can imagine that that might be something that we get to see again. What about new entries that we might see in the Arcane Journal? Well, a classic kind of bent that we've seen in previous armies that have chariots is let's release a chariot but with better crew. So the Tomb Guard chariots for Tomb King, the Black Orc chariots for Orcs and Goblins. It would be, possible to suggest maybe we'll get to see a Bestigor chariot if it weren't for the fact that the Tuskagore chariot already has a Bestigor in it. I don't really like the idea of having a Minotaur running around, and Beastmen already have kind of an upgraded version of the chariot in the Ravening Hordes list, which is the Razorgore chariot, which does bring me on to what new model I think we might get to see for Beastmen. And that is a new Razorgore kit. I would love it if this was a multi-part plastic kit with a whole bunch of different options in there. The Razorgore that was released, I'll show you a picture of. This is the model they released for the Razorgore. It is one of the ugliest models Games Workshop ever produced. And I know that the Razorgore is supposed to be kind of a horrible, twisted mutant version of kind of a big boar, but it's just, when you compare it to some of the stuff that's been released for, like, the Ardboys and stuff in Age of Sigmar, it really does just not hold up to the quality of a lot of the rest of the miniatures that are out there. It's got a weird kind of bugged out eye. It looks like if somebody fed Pumbaa from The Lion King acid. I would love to see a replacement Razorgore kit, preferably in multi-part plastic, so you can build it as kind of different options. Certainly the 8th edition army book had units of both Razorgores and Razorgore chariots, and that is something that is in the Ravening Hordes list at the moment. I would love to see that brought in as part and parcel of the army list now, with perhaps a new plastic entry that you can build as Razorgores to make a unit, or as a Razorgore chariot and mount, your characters and your, a whole bunch of Bestigor in. That would be really cool. The other thing that I think that we might get to see in the Arcane Journal is that there was an entry that featured in the 8th edition Beastman book, which essentially was the Razorgore's big cousin. In the same way that the Razorgore is a tooled up version of the Tuskagore, there was a giant kind of hulking version that was available in the 8th edition book, and I would love to see that come back, mainly because I want to get the giant boar from the Ardboys range with a couple of Black Orcs kind of hanging off the side, and replace the Black Orcs with Bestigor and have a giant boar with Bestigors mounted on the side charging through the army. But equally, I think what we could see a return of, in the same way that the giant Chaos Spawn has made a return as part of the Beastman list at the moment, I think what we could see is a return of the classic Chaos Spine Beast model, perhaps filling that kind of role. In terms of other kind of classic models that might make a return to the army list, I would like to see actually something from the kind of the Age of Sigmar range that might be something unique and cool that the Beastmen could add, and that is the Herdstone kit. So this obviously was part of kind of parcel of the kind of the terrain sets that they produced for the different armies for Age of Sigmar. It's a lovely kit. They've got the molds for it. I can't see any reason why they could not release the Herdstone as an option for the Beastmen in the kind of the Beastman army book, in the Beastman Arcane Journal. Beastman's rules, as they are kind of written at the moment, focus very much on the Primal Fury rule, on getting those extra attacks and getting the kind of combat bonus. And it would be nice if there was like a buffing piece of terrain that you could pay some points and take, that you then set up on the board, and this gave you that kind of extra re-roll on the Primal Fury or something to make the army as a whole hit harder. It would also kind of pave the way, I suppose, for what I expect we'll see when the Wood Elf Arcane Journal comes out, which is being allowed to take lots of extra woods and stuff. More on that in a later video. In terms of what kind of unique army lists we might see in this, well, I've said it before, I'd love to see kind of a Morgor list. We know that one of the characters that's featuring in the Arcane Journal is this kind of Beastman prophet who's searching for the reborn Morgor, and I'm assuming that there'll be an army list that is based around him, in much the same way that all the previous Arcane Journals have featured a couple of army lists that link to the special characters that are included in the book. An army list that perhaps features him and that features, I don't know, loads of Chaos Spawn, perhaps mutants. It would be really nice if we got an actual brand spanking new mutant kit That would be a cool addition to add to the army list. In terms of the other army list, I know I'm biased on this. One of my all-time favourite characters from the Warriors of Chaos book from kind of 8th edition, and still one of the greatest models that they produced back then, was Throg the Troll King, the king with the kind of the solemn crown wrapped around one of his tusks. I don't think it was the solemn crown, but anyway, with the crown kind of precariously wrapped around one of his tusks. I think that would be a really awesome model for them to bring back. I can't, unfortunately, remember where Throg fits in kind of the Warhammer timeline, but just give us a Troll King. You don't even have to make him a named character necessarily. Give us a Troll King, and give us an army list that lets us take Chaos Trolls and monsters, all kind of as core choices, ruled over by this giant bestial Troll King. That would be a really cool option to include into the army list as well. Another couple of options that I think we might see either as a made-to-order or as entries within the Arcane Journal are the Khorngor and Pestigor kits, and maybe the Zangor kit, although that is already doing heavy-duty service in the Age of Sigmar, kind of backing up the Tzeentite army in Age of Sigmar, and they are somewhat loath to mix across the ranges unless it's unavoidable. These are two kits, again, that were released back in kind of 6th edition, certainly the kind of metal models. I can fully imagine they might get released as a made-to-order metal option, and then perhaps within the Arcane Journal there might be the option to give your units of Bestigor marks of Khorne, Tzeentch, Slanesh or Nurgle. I'm not sure that we'll get it as a full-on unit entry, you know, a new unit entry. I think it might be something instead that's just kind of added in as an option contained within the book, just to kind of expand upon what was already available within the army. Certainly it would be quite cool if you could give Beasts units marks. Back in 6th edition, pretty much everything could have marks. I've got a 6th edition Beastman army that features things like a, you know, Doomball of Khorne and Khorngor, all kinds of cool Khornate goat monsters clobbering things to death. The other major thing, though, that I think we might see in the Arcane Journal is there were two kits that were released as part of the Monstrous Arcanum range. One of which I don't like, one of which I like a lot. Let's deal with the one I'm not a big fan of first. It's the Praeton model. This actually had a unit entry in the 8th edition Beasts of Chaos book. It looks kind of like a really sick moose with wings. I'm just really not a fan of it, if I'm honest. But it is a model. So, and it might well make a reappearance in Forge World Resin. If they have a choice between re-releasing that and re-releasing this next option, I would much prefer we go with the next option. And that is the Incarnate of the Beasts, of the Lore of Beasts. It is kind of huge, muscular torso with a giant kind of dead goat skull or dead deer skull mounted on the top. I think this is an awesome model. I mean, frankly, if they release the Praeton and not this, I would be tempted to try and lay my hands on a copy of this just so I can use it as a Praeton, because I think it is a much nicer model than the Praeton model. Certainly both of these featured in the Warhammer Total War unit entries for Beasts of Chaos, so it's not beyond the realm of possibility that we might see both of them. I am somewhat wary. We've only generally seen the return of one of the kind of Forge World Monstrous Arcanum type creatures for each army list. For example, the Merworm for the High Elves, the Troll Hag for the Orcs and Goblin list. So it might be a case of we get one or the other. Come on, Games Workshop. The Incarnate of the Elemental of Beasts is a much cooler model. Let's have that. But that is it in terms of kind of additional returning kind of previous Forge World models that I think we might see. What kind of made-to-order kind of stuff do I expect to see? Well, again, the made-to-order stuff tends to pick up on some of the older miniatures that perhaps have fallen by the wayside. I mean, the War Wagon is kind of a noticeable exception where it's an actually remastered and brand new miniature, and I'm still surprised that Games Workshop went made-to-order on that and didn't just make it part of the ongoing range. And I still fully expect that they may well do that in the future, but without the engineered custom model that they sculpted at the time. In terms of Beastman stuff, well, there was the lovely kind of metal Beastman miniatures and Ungors that were released for kind of the 5th edition Realm of Chaos book. It's possible we could see those on made-to-order. I'd certainly be very happy if the Minotaurs were released as a made-to-order as part of that. Equally, I can fully expect that some of the classic kind of Beastmen characters, like Gorthor, the Beast Lord on his chariot, that might get a re-release, so you can kind of take him as a kind of chariot-mounted character for your army. Some of the characters like Kazdarak One-Eye and stuff, and again, they might get released as a made-to-order. What I would really hope to see is perhaps some of the classic monsters. I know we've got, you know, the lovely kind of Cockatrice model and the plastic Chimera, the plastic Manticore, but I would love to see if they were to release some of the really old monster models, and I gave you that option to kind of include the classic Death Chicken and stuff in your army as part of a made-to-order release. That then being said, that's my kind of predictions for what we're going to get for Beastmen. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments if you think there's anything I have missed, or anything you think that I am wrong about, or if there's anything that you think, you know, oh yeah, absolutely, that's going to be there, that's going to be awesome. I'd love to hear from you. If you've not already clicked subscribe, please do the whole click the like, subscribe, click the bell thing so you don't miss future videos from me thing. And otherwise, I will catch you next time. Thanks very much, and bye for now.